sometimes we don't win. Don't give us a bird, don't give us your stink eye. We try our best and we're successful. Come watch our show, Bet River sponsors. It's time to start. Enjoy the show.
Oh, welcome everyone to a new week of Betting Weekly Live with Steve Wyss, and alongside me today is Lewis Jones, our Premier League handicapper and journalist. Lewis, I hope you've had a great weekend and looking forward to discussing more Monday night plays with you.
Yeah, as always, Premier League never fails to deliver, really, does it, in terms of excitement and storylines? The Manchester derby, it's absolutely mad, wasn't it? An absolute horrendous game for 88 minutes. Couldn't wait for it to finish. And then bang, those two goals out of nowhere for Man City just more or less imploding once again. Absolutely fascinating to watch, because those two, that could be a huge moment in sort of the trajectory of both clubs, I think, maybe, because this could be the start now of what Amorim wants to build at Manchester United, and gives everyone a bit more belief that he can get his message across, and what a win in the derby can do that. And then what does this mean for Manchester City? Are they now just a sort of a busted flush, and this is the end of the line for them in terms of this era for Pep Guardiola? I do think it could be that sort of seismic, that end of that game. It was a fascinating watch, and it was just all over the show really in the Premier League. Just some great games as always, great storylines to follow. And Kulusevski got me out of a bit of a hole yesterday with a typical Kulusevski performance. Shot on target was overpriced, goal was overpriced, and he delivered again for me. So thankfully that got me out of a bit of a sticky Saturday. I had just putting my faith in Kulusevski, who's sort of like, I think I'm starting to love him just as much as my children at the moment in terms of how much money he's making me this season. So that's good. How was your weekend? Winning?
I was up. There was some frustrations as usual. I mean, that Manchester derby, I felt for the underbackers really, because that deserved to be an under game all day long. And I think I'm done with Man City. I actually thought Man City would. I thought I'd give them one last chance. I didn't back them or anything, but I expected a performance from City. I expected goals in the game. I thought they would, because I don't rate Man United much still. I really don't, Lewis. And to be fair, I don't think United were that great either. But City, they're gone. I think they're just a shadow of what they were. And I'm finished with them. I can't back them now.
He doesn't know how to fix it. Does he, Guardiola? And he submitted that in the press conference. I think after the game, he was very down on himself and said, "Look, Núñez at left back didn't work. Ended up costing him the game. Really, the fact he played there and was out of position and played that awful pass back, and then had to sort of try and make up for his error by by giving away the penalty. So yeah, just a mess from Man City at the moment. And it's just, I think the ploy just has to be to keep taking them on when the prices are right, and just base your opinions on their last sort of 15 games or so. Forget about what's happened in the last 4 years. Now is the time to just go with a little bit of the recency in terms of their performances, and just see how wrong the market is still, I think, on Man City in certain occasions. So money to be made still, I think on City. I don't think it's going to get any better.
Yeah, the interesting thing was everyone's on about Kyle Walker, you got to get the ball forward and all that, but the normal City wouldn't even be 1-0 up there. They'd be 2 or 3-0 up. And one of the big problems is they're scoring goals. I mean, we're going to move on to the top scorer market here, because Haaland is a big topic of discussion in lots of different areas at the minute. But what a weekend it was across Europe. There were so many big names didn't win. I couldn't believe what I was seeing last night. Barcelona lost to Leganes. They were 20-1. Real Madrid were involved in a 3-3 draw. Bayern Munich lost to Mainz. The likes of, in the Premier League, Liverpool didn't win. Arsenal didn't win. Obviously, Man City didn't win. When was the last time that happened? I think there were several other big names across the whole continent which failed. But actually, interestingly enough, the biggest wager on soccer over the weekend at Bet Rivers was on one of the big teams that did win and that might be sneaking under the radar in La Liga, Atletico Madrid Live. That was the biggest winner, $60,000. Well done to that particular bet. Or a huge bet, nearly 100 grand though, was lost on the Colts plus 4.5 against the Broncos, sadly, in the NFL. and 50 grand was lost on the Army, -4. So the Navy have done the Army there on that particular handicap. Tell us about your weekend, guys. Did you win or lose? I felt quite fortunate not to get sucked into some serious traps, actually. Generally over the weekend, just looking through some of the comments now. Welcome into Rick, J-Rod, Cree, Peter. Great to see you, Disky as well. And then, of course, managers. We'll quickly talk about that. Lewis, you're a man in the know. Who's the front runner for the Southampton job? Are we looking at Wolves as well? I mean, what are your predictions? Who's going to be in place and when?
Well, I haven't been in the newsroom today. I wasn't working today, and the day job, so I've been a little bit out of the loop in terms of this Southampton story. But from my point of view, having watched what's gone on with their style of football under Russell Martin, I think they're just going to revert to a more sort of defensive, organised style. I think they need to bring someone in of that sort of ilk. I think a firefighter maybe to just completely change it, make them hard to beat, and see if that can help. Because what's gone on over the past, since they've got promoted, hasn't been good enough for the Premier League. So they need to go back to basics a bit, I think, and just start from there. Maybe someone of the ilk of David Moyes. I'm not sure if he'd be interested in the job. It's a bit of a risk for him probably taking it, but yeah, it's going to be tough for them. They already cut adrift, really, aren't they, at the bottom of the league? So unless a manager can come in and really turn it around, it's going to be difficult for them to survive. And yeah, they were just awful in that first half against Tottenham. I mean, Tottenham.
Well, I thought Russell Martin was a bit of a disgrace that he left down the tunnel, didn't he? 4 minutes to go of stoppage time, obviously getting ready to absolutely lay into them or whatever. And then he didn't even see the fifth goal. But no, the thing with Martin, I think you said it before, I think yourself a little bit, that he was not going to change his style. It was obvious that style wasn't going to keep them up, and I guess they had to decide long term if they wanted to go down and come back up with him. But I just think it's just not been good enough for them, and it's a tough job.
That was such an opportunity for them to really put some pressure on Tottenham, who came in. I mean, they must have been leggy because they've had such a relentless schedule. Van der Ven's out still. Romero was out. I mean, what an opportunity for Southampton to go to put some pressure on them early in that game and turn the heat up. And they conceded in what was it, under 2 minutes? Madison scored. Just an absolute
perfect opponent for them.
Took all the pressure off Tottenham, and everything's hunky dory again with Spurs after that performance. But Southampton, they're in a bit of a mess and some big decisions for them to make, I think, over the next few weeks.
Yeah, Wolves look like they're going with another Portuguese boss or usually someone of that sort of area, isn't it? But I mean, the next manager to be sacked market, there's loads of managers under pressure. It's absolutely crazy times in the Premier League right now. I asked you last week about the outright market, top and especially the bottom of the league. This week, I'm going to ask you about the top scorer market, because this is interesting. We've got Erling Haaland is -167. 13 goals he scored. Mo Salah plus 200, 13 goals. Palmer plus 750. He's got 11 goals. And Buemo has 10 goals, and Chris Wood has 10. Now, with Haaland, I mean, I play fantasy Premier League, and I've kept him in. I'm getting rid of him finally. I just thought at some point he would have to come good. He's not getting the service. He's not. Even when he's on the ball, he's not looking that great at the minute. Mo Salah, is he going to stay with Liverpool for the rest of the season? And then, obviously Haaland as well hasn't had his sort of traditional injury yet, has he? He usually gets injured at some point in the season, wherever he's been. Even the World Cup year, everyone forgets this. He actually took a month off, and he was recovering from that was the injury picked up there. So it was really useful for him. Is there a bit of value taking on some of these? The top two in the market, do you think, Lewis? Or Mo Salah at plus 200, to be fair, if he lasts the season, has some legs. What do you reckon to this market?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a false favourite here, actually, in Haaland. It's far too short. If Man City are going to continue along this pathway, they're not the same Manchester City that we've known before. So you can't have Haaland as the favourite, I don't think, at, what was he, 4 to 6, was he? About 4 to 6, yeah, -167, yeah. So he's only scored 3 goals in his last 11 Premier League games, which sort of coincides with this Man City drop-off. And he is so reliant on the team functioning to give him chances to stick away, and they're not functioning at the moment. As you said, when they went 1-0 up against Man United, I thought this was the opportunity now for them to just go and do what they normally do and strangle a team, push them back, relentless pressure, create chances, and they didn't. They looked so scared of their own shadow in terms of sitting on that lead, and I think they had 3 shots maybe in the second half, I think. And Haaland was anonymous for most of that game. So, as I said, I can't see it getting any better for Man City over the next sort of month or so. So, and he's level on Salah with 13 at the moment, isn't he? So he's not exactly like 2 or 3 clear. So I'm not sure why I don't think the market's really caught up with this in terms of the Man City drop off. And I'd have Salah a little bit shorter than that. So that makes him probably an angle if anyone wanted to get involved. But the price that stands out for me, and I'm very tempted, I haven't backed this yet, but I'm very tempted to have a proper look at this over the next maybe day or so, is Alexander Isak there at was he plus 4,000, I think, 40 to 1. I wouldn't be happy standing that as a bookmaker. He's a world-class finisher at this level, Isak, and has shown this for a couple of seasons now. And he showed that against Liverpool, didn't he, a couple of weeks ago in that performance where he completely ran Virgil van Dijk ragged, scored a really brilliant solo goal. And he scored 7 goals now in his last 8 appearances in the Premier League. So if he continues to sort of go along at that sort of rate for the next 20 games or so, he could be in to score another sort of 14, 15 goals this season. He's always going to play as that centre forward if he stays fit for Newcastle. So if he gets 15 goals, I think he's on 7 right now. So that would get him to sort of the 22, 23 mark. And that might just be enough to nick it this year. So I can't see that 40 to 1 lasting much longer if he continues in this sort of vein of form. And he could be a sort of a live outsider for people to latch onto. Could give you a bit of fun throughout the season following that, actually, because Newcastle normally are quite a goal-heavy team, aren't they? He's capable of scoring 2s and 3s in a game against the sort of lesser likes Isak. He's that good. So definitely would keep Isak on your side at that sort of price.
He's a quality finisher, no doubt about it whatsoever. I'm just looking through the list here. What a world we're living in. There's 2 Brentford players in the top 6. My man, Johan Wisser. I mean, he missed 2 months for injury and he's scored 9 goals. What a season, Johan Wisser.
Their shot conversion rate at the moment, though, is sort of like is a complete outlier. That's not going to last. It's up there with I think it's like 23% at home in terms of every shot they take in terms of their conversion rate, which is just ridiculous. It's normally averages around the sort of 11 to 12% mark. So that's not going to continue. And they've got more difficult games at home coming up. So you can see those 2 probably slowing down a bit as the season progresses. But yeah, they are a dangerous duo, those 2. I do like backing them when the prices are right, got to be said.
Nigel says Man City shouldn't be favourite in the FA Cup and they shouldn't be second favourites for the Champions League. I mean, I've got to agree with that. I mean, they don't look like anywhere near. And I'm not sure how they fix it until, the off-season, really. You're right. It just doesn't seem to have a quick fix. Anyway, we've got matches today. And we have got a big game in the Premier League. Bournemouth against West Ham. I'll tell you what, I'm really used to. I probably know more about West Ham than any other Premier League team at the minute, Lewis, because I've had to do my research on these Monday night games. Yeah.
I think they've won I think I saw a stat earlier. They've won 7 games out of the last 8 on a Monday night when the cameras are on Monday Night Football. So I'm not sure if there's something in that, but they just like playing in front of the cameras. West Ham, if you believe in sort of weird sort of situations like that in terms of betting, then Stretch, 7 from 8 is a pretty strong record, and they weren't supposed to win at Newcastle, were they? So yeah, maybe they raise it on a Monday night for some reason. Someone can tell me why. I'd love to know.
Minus 143 Bournemouth. The ties plus 310. West Ham plus 360. Over 3.5 goals is at plus 140. Both teams score yeses minus 200. We've got a few goal scorer anytime picks up there. Evan Nielsen Barbosa. I didn't even know that was his full name, actually. Plus 170 is the favourite anytime for Bournemouth. I can tell you now, 61% of the money is on Bournemouth, 70% of the tickets. That's quite a close split, actually. So lots of difference of opinion here. 51% of the money's on the over, and so obviously 49% on the under. West Ham, you mentioned, have that brilliant record on a Monday, but you think they are worth opposing here?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm surprised, actually, the percentage there I was more skewed towards Bournemouth, actually, in terms of the bets being placed, because I make them I'm most likely winners of this match by a long way, and there could be actually some value in their price, I think. So absolutely flying under Iraola, who's got to be actually, I'm going to say, I think he's the best pound-for-pound manager in the league based on sort of budget and net spend. Because let's not forget, he's lost his star centre-forward at the end of last season, Dominic Solanke. And he somehow made them a sort of better team, I think, this season with the signing of Evan Nielsen. And everyone his style of football isn't sort of over-reliant on one player. It's the way they play as a team, and they're very cohesive without the ball, press really well. It's a very sort of hybrid way of playing without possession. very unique the way they stop teams in possession. So, yeah, I really like Iraola. I'm a bit of a groupie of his, to be honest. I think he's going places as a manager, and the next top job that comes available in those top 6, I think he's going to be in line to take this here, because I think someone's going to take a chance on him soon. Because Bournemouth made the best ever start to a top division season, haven't they? Again, and actually based on the underlying numbers, they could even be higher up the table had they sort of matched their underlying process, especially in attack, because based on expected goals difference per game, so that's the balancing quality of shots and shots faced from a sort of a performance metric point of view, Bournemouth actually ranks second in the Premier League, with only obviously Liverpool above them. And I think that's their big underperformance has come in attack, because there's actually holding them back from really sort of challenging towards the top end of the table and challenging for the title potentially, because they've scored 7.9 goals fewer than their XG in the Premier League this season, which I think is quite incredible, really, considering how good of a season they've had. So it could have been even better if the finishing had been a bit tighter in the final third. 1-3 on the spin now, haven't they? 1-4 in the last 5 at home, including beating Arsenal and Man City. I know they were down to 10 men, Arsenal, and beating Man City is no great shakes these days, but still, that was quite an impressive performance again. And just when I'm going through these games and sort of price them up, I always like to assess teams' weaknesses and strengths through sort of various metrics to try if you can find an angle or a situation where a strength sort of meets a weakness in a way, in order to try and fashion a bet, or to see if the market hasn't maybe factored that angled in. And I do think there are sort of 2 key areas in this game where Bournemouth really have the edge over West Ham to make me quite confident here that I think they'll be the better team over 90 minutes. So the first one is Bournemouth's strength at playing in transition. So against when the ball turns over and they get the ball forward very quickly, and West Ham have got a really poor record this season in terms of conceding chances from that sort of way of attacking. So Bournemouth are creating 6.9 chances per game through transition. So that's basically a sort of a direct counter-attack that ends with them having a touch in the penalty box. So 6.9 times that's happened this season. And West Ham rank 18th for conceding the most chances from transitions in the league this season. That's 5.6 per game. And I just think that stems from them not having actually many legs in midfield or across the team, to be honest. It's a very aging team, this West Ham team. Their average starting 11 this season has been 28 years and 285 days old in the Premier League. So, and only Everton have got a higher average. So they're very sort of old, aging, I would say quite a slow team. And that's exactly what Bournemouth aren't. They pressure, they get about you. They're gonna make West Ham run. And so I think Bournemouth will have the edge there. And just secondly, quickly as well, West Ham very strong from set pieces, aren't they? Versus they showed that versus Wolves and Newcastle, where they got the opening goal. But Bournemouth has shown under Iraola that they are very organised and good at defending set plays. They're only conceding 2.2 shots per game from set pieces this season. That's the 3rd best record in the Premier League. So just on that, I think they'll be able to quell sort of West Ham's main strength, which is their set pieces. And yeah, I think everything just points to a Bournemouth win here, and just West Ham's defence as well. Over this calendar year, conceded 72 goals in the Premier League. That's 2.1 goals per game. And that's over a sort of a 34 game sample size as well. So this is something which was going on for so long now. 2.1 per game is absolutely horrendous for a team that should be sort of kicking on towards sort of mid-table and even the top half. So I think the minus 143 absolutely fine for anyone who wants to back Bournemouth outright. But I've just got to be greedy, Steve. I'm always looking to add a little bit of juice to the price, I think. And there's a good opportunity here to add under 4.5 goals into the mix as well, which can get us to even money. So you have to do the same game parlay and just add under 4.5 goals to a Bournemouth win. Because there's only been 16 goals scored in Bournemouth's 6 home games this season. So averaging 2.6 total match goals per game. Only the City ground for Nottingham Forest has seen fewer this season. And Bournemouth have only conceded 6 Premier League home goals this season. And Liverpool have only got a better home record than that. So just like that under 4.5 line into the mix here, because in 26 home matches under Iraola, only one of them have gone over 4.5, and that was their 4-3 win over Luton. So yeah, I just think combining those 2 angles here, Bournemouth win, and is on the money lines probably backable enough on its own. But again, I'm going to be a little bit greedy and get it to the even money mark by just adding under 4.5 goals into the mix. But Steve, you don't agree? You think West Ham are lively outsiders here? Is this what this is the vibes I was getting you pre-match here?
Yeah, you've spoken well there, though, to be fair. I was thinking about this. And, I mean, I've got some XG numbers here from Understat. And, I mean, Bournemouth are 3rd on their list for expected points. They should be 3rd in the Premier League. And they're underachieving their XG by 10. But my problem is, and there's a lot of teams around this I've seen in recent years where do I actually see Bournemouth regressing back to the mean for that? I don't, because they've got the sort of players that miss too many chances for me.
That's a fair point. That's a really fair point.
Semenyo, it's only Haaland averages more shots per game. But this guy just shoots wildly. I like him, and he does a lot of great things. But one thing he doesn't do is shoot accurately this season. 22% of his shots on target only. Evan Nielsen hasn't really settled yet. Maybe there's a player there. At times he looks like his finish against Villa was really good, the header. So maybe he could be the one that gets that XG back in the right direction. And they're just the sort of team that will, I don't know. Consistency's never been their thing, has it? For a while, that I almost feel like they're due a poor result. And the West Ham this is maybe a mental thing. The West Ham Monday night thing did get in my head. Have they got the sort of players that just don't try on a Sunday, on a Saturday afternoon, but in front of the big lights? Maybe I think there's some big egos here who'd like to prove a point. I just know. But I think the first goal is really important in this game, Lewis. I think if Bournemouth score the first goal, West Ham are in massive trouble because they don't come from behind that often. But if West Ham can poke get their noses in front, it might be a bit different. I've got to talk to you about shots again, as we did last week. Souček for me, plus 118, just to have 2 shots or more. I know you mentioned the defender of the set piece as well. But can he defend Thomas Souček? I mean, he's unbelievable. He's a monster in the air.
He's I think aerially he's statistically shown he's the best aerial duel winner in the Premier League from the past sort of maybe 5 years in the Premier League. When the ball's in the air, there's no one you want more than Souček on the end of it. So again, I would row back a little bit on him tonight just because of that. The fact that Bournemouth don't really give away too many set pieces, and also when they do give away a set piece, they are normally quite solid at defending them. So I'd row a little bit back on Souček tonight. But if you've made money from Souček before, I can totally see why you'd be interested in following those shots lines and header on targets line if that's available. Goals as well. He's opened the scoring twice now, isn't he, already in the last 2 games on the Monday night? So in for the hat trick if you fancy that again. So yeah, just tonight, rowing back a little bit on Souček, because I'm just so pro Bournemouth. I just think the matchup for him here in terms of their strengths against West Ham's weaknesses really, really suits them and isn't factored into the prices, I think.
And what about the total match shots here? Is a huge line with Bet Rivers, 31.5. We are expecting a lot of shots here. Bournemouth do fire in a lot of efforts. So they're just that sort of team. But that line is very high here at Bet Rivers, isn't it? 31.5. I mean, you've got to be. I mean, I think I quite like the West Ham shots line again, 12.5. If they average 15 per game, Bournemouth concede about 13 per game, and it could be potentially. And I mean, I think West Ham. I said it last week. They've got individual players who like to go for glory, just simple as that. And I think Bournemouth do a little bit as well. Where are you on the goal line in this game? Before we just finish with the League Two game, goal line here over 3. Well, it's generally around the 3 mark, isn't it? 3.5 over 3.5 goals plus 140. Over 2.5 goals is minus 190. So the Asian line, as you can imagine, is right in between 3.25 or 3 sort of mark. I mean, do you reckon that's sort of push territory on the 3?
I would lean towards the unders. I think just those numbers I sort of read out about Iraola at home, and the fact, as you say, Bournemouth, they aren't very reliable at sort of finishing their dinner, so to speak, are they? They take a lot of shots, and their conversion rate is low, and that XG underperformance is probably to do with the fact they've got the play that they haven't got that sort of the quality of finisher to match their sort of really good approach play that the manager brings. So I can sort of I can see the underlying copping, but again, I'd be more pro on the Bournemouth price, so I'd have to go higher on the goal line if that makes sense for an under point of view. So to generate a bet that I'm interested in at around even money, I do think combining the under 4.5 line is quite sensible if you're looking to back Bournemouth as well, just to get that little bit of extra juice.
Yeah, I've got to say, Bournemouth are an interesting case. They were plus 130 against Spurs, and that didn't ring right with me. Initially, I looked at minus 143 here, and I thought, wow, are they that good now? Maybe you're right. Maybe you are right, Lewis. I think it's a very interesting point. We've got, while you're here, we're going to talk about the English League Two game today. It's between Fleetwood and Accrington. You got a bet for us here. How do you see this one going?
Fleetwood Accrington, yeah, the Lancashire derby on a Monday night. Is it going to be a hot pot, Steve, or is it going to be one of those sort of overcooked stews that like
Yorkshire pudding, please, rather than Lancashire hot pot?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yes, of course. That side of Britain, aren't you? So yeah, no, I can see this game being quite a tough watch, actually, involving two teams not in great form. Fleetwood managed by Charlie Adam, former Liverpool player who 7 years ago was playing in the Premier League for Stoke against West Ham. That was his final season in the Premier League, and he's been in charge at Fleetwood for just over a year now. Not really tore it up, to be honest. Been pretty mediocre, especially the home form, which never sort of sits well with home supporters. And I do think he's under a little bit of pressure at the moment. But Accrington not having a good season either. They're close to the relegation zone in League Two, mainly just due to their poor defensive stats. Going into this weekend, only Morecambe, 34, have had a worse goals conceded record than them, and they just can't defend really. Accrington. So it's an interesting one that from the FA Cup draw really has affected them here for Accrington. They've drawn Liverpool away, and that game's coming up on January the 11th. And since they've drawn Liverpool, obviously a mega tie for the football club. It's going to make them a lot of money. Probably going to be a once in a lifetime opportunity for a lot of these players. Since they've drawn Liverpool, they drew Liverpool. They've lost 5-2 and 5-2 at Grimsby, then 2-1 at home to Bromley. And I just see it all the time with teams in the lower leagues who have a glamour tie on the horizon. They sort of just subconsciously drop their levels a little bit, 2-3%, just in order to make sure that they'll be available and not injured for that sort of once in a lifetime game, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. So I do think that's probably affecting Accrington a little bit. So yeah, two teams really out of form here. Fleetwood won just once in 10 games in all competition. Accrington just one win in 7. So I do think the unders were just a very sort of obvious play here at the prices, at odds against. And I'll definitely be covering the 0-0 correct score as well at around sort of 12-1. Fleetwood have only scored 8 goals in their 9 home games this season. They've drawn 0-0 3 times from their 9 games at home already. So the 0-0 is probably a runner at that big price. Just two teams well out of form, and when two teams are out of form to the extent that they are, you've got to have a look at the unders line and throw a throwaway fiver maybe on that 0-0 correct score as well.
Yeah, under 2.5 goals. Fleetwood Town against Accrington Stanley is at -122 with Bet Rivers. You know what? It got me thinking about: are we approaching this round now where a yellow card will get you suspended for Boxing Day? You used to see some daft red cards around this coming up weekend, didn't you? It is the last round before the Boxing Day fixtures and the New Year ones. But
yeah, a lot of players on 4 yellow cards, aren't they? There's always looking at that to see this time of year. Those players on 4 yellow cards, 1 away from a suspension around the Christmas period. Very cynical of us to suggest that happens, but hey. This is the real world we're in here, and people love having Christmas off, don't they? So it's definitely a betting angle to keep an eye on when this time of year comes around for sure. Yes, it's quite. I'm gonna probably look into that over the next few weeks actually to see how many players do. If the yellow card players going into the game on 4 yellow cards, what's the strike rate of them getting the 5th? So maybe we can look into that data over the next few weeks. Definitely got to be looking at all these angles over to try and get ahead, haven't we, Steve? It's a very good shout, I think that.
We certainly do. Lazio against Inter is a match today, a big one in Serie A. I've put a link in there because me and James Easton discussed it. Well, it was James did most of the hard yards, actually. A man, again, in form, a great winner yesterday with Strasbourg on the handicap. So do watch the James's preview for that match. But we've got to go. A brilliant have you on as ever, Lewis. Great discussion. I'm intrigued with Bournemouth. I'll tell you what, if you might be right. I really like the angles you've got in. The more I looked into it, the more I was like, they might be a really good, legit team. So that is obviously your best bet today. Straight on the money line for Bournemouth.
Yeah, we can add. Yeah, we can add. I think we can add under 4.5 goals into the mix just to get a little bit of. We're a very greedy punter when it comes to trying to add things in just to get value value like that. It's probably my downfall in the long run. But yeah, I'd rather boost that price up to even money just by adding under 4.5 into the mix. And yeah, hopefully the Iraola loving can continue from my end because he's a manager going places. I think play some really difficult football for teams to work out, and I'm not sure this West Ham team are any great shakes in the Premier League. Still, I still think they're a long way away from where they need to be. Very old team, going to get outrun in midfield, won't be able to score from a set piece, and yeah, Bournemouth to win. I think, Steve.
Well, I can see the graphic now coming up on that and Monday Night Football later about the average age of teams. It's always up there. It's like they're from a geriatric unit, really. Very lot of experience, though, as well in there. True. And I do say, watch out for Susek in the air. I think he's a monster from set pieces. Shakespeare says Minnesota Vikings -7. This man's been on fire all season long. In the baseball, in the NFL, you'd be advised to follow him. But until tomorrow, and I've got RJ on the show with me on Betting Weekly Live tomorrow, so we look forward to that. Thank you very much, Lewis. Bet responsibly, everyone, and best luck with all those plays. See you tomorrow.